Engage your brain and enter the mind's eye, your one-stop shop for politics to paranormal and everything in between. I'm your humble host, DJ BJ Turnov, and you're listening to The Mind's Eye on Z Talk Radio. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night or in the morning after a crazy dream and asked yourself, what the hell was that all about? Let's take that notion one step further and say, why do we dream at all? Both branches of sciences, natural and social, they've taken some pretty great stabs at the answer. Depending on the expert that you're talking to, it could be a physical rejuvenation, a mental stress valve, or that it's fundamental to memory and everyday problem solving. And they're all probably right. Here's what I do note. To Lucid Dream. Author and science writer David J. Brown will be taking us on a trip to dreamland, and along the way we're going to discuss his book, Deaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. On the other side of the break, David J. Brown's going to draw from more than 20 years of experience to teach you how to master the practice. This is The Mind's Eye on Z Talk Radio. Another fundamental question that we ask ourselves outside of why do we dream, are we alone? Well, the global net for the search for extraterrestrial life has just gotten a bit wider. China began operating what is now the world's largest radio telescope. They're going to begin searching for signals from stars and galaxies, and perhaps alien life. This and other great articles on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Just look us up at Mind's Eye Show. Again, Twitter and Facebook at Mind's Eye Show. While China is exploring outer space, let's explore inner space. Back with David J. Brown on Learning to Lucid Dream in just a matter of moments. This is The Mind's Eye. Let's welcome to The Mind's Eye author David J. Brown. We're discussing his book, Deaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
It really is my pleasure. And right off the bat, I do have to tell you, I think the cover to your book is one of the most beautiful that I've really ever seen. It to me, it really just grabs a hold of you, and after reading the book, it really perfectly captures it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was done by Cameron Gray, and I think it's the most ideal cover they could have probably picked for it. I wasn't involved in picking the cover art. It was done at Inner Traditions, but I could not possibly have been more happy with it. I agree. It's absolutely beautiful.
I don't think you're complaining at all. And obviously we're here to talk about lucid dreaming, and let's build a nice foundation for our listening audience. Tell us what exactly is lucid dreaming, because it can be considered, I guess, a bit of a misnomer sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Some people don't really understand what it is. A lot of people think it's the controlling your dreams when it's not really controlling your dreams. Lucid dreaming means that you become aware and awake of the process of dreaming while you're actually dreaming. In other words, it would be like right now suddenly realizing that this conversation and the world around you was taking place inside your mind. It's a really astonishing thing to actually wake up in a dream and realize that you're dreaming and know that your body is lying peacefully, slumbering in bed somewhere, safe and sound under the covers in a whole nother reality, and you have complete access to all your waking world memories. So anything that you plan to do or experiment to do or wanted to try doing in the lucid dream, you'll have access to those memories and be able to experiment. Once you become awake and aware in a dream, you then you're almost like a deity. You have the ability to fly, to go through walls, to manipulate matter, and the laws of physics change dramatically. Basically, whatever you believe real to be real is possible, and the world around you is every bit as solid and real seeming as the world around you right now. It's truly a remarkable experience, and it has not only tremendous value for fantasy and fun, but also a therapeutic value for healing illnesses, for healing traumas, and maybe even developing psychic abilities possibly, or certainly can help with spiritual spiritual awareness and spiritual advancement. It's been used as a part of Tibetan Buddhism for several thousand years now as part of their program part of their training to reach enlightenment.
And you touched on a lot of subjects which we're going to go into much more depth as the interview unfolds. But let's scale it back and tell us, because you've had probably at this point now, I guess it'd be countless experiences since you've been having lucid dreams as a teenager. What's it like to have a lucid dream in the sense? Is there any sensory difference? And how has your personal experiences with lucid dreaming affected and changed your life personally?
Oh, gosh, well, that's a big question. Okay, well, first of all, the experience of being in a lucid dream is truly remarkable. There is a difference. As even though I said earlier that it's every bit as real and solid seeming, when you look around, you're just astonished at how real the world looks. There are definitely differences. One of the primary differences is that colors seem brighter. The world seems just to be enriched with a greater sort of sensory quality, very similar to what people describe on psychedelic drugs with mushrooms or with LSD. It has this kind of heightened sensitivity to color and to just the way the world looks around you. Another thing, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can bend the laws of physics, so you can engage in doing things that you couldn't possibly do in this reality. And it's been used by people to heal from different traumas and different illnesses, different injuries. There's a famous story of someone who had an infection in his tonsils, and then during the lucid dream was able to go into look into a dream mirror and imagine that his tonsils were being healed. And when he woke up, something like 90% of the infection was gone. There's been a number of anecdotes that are similar to that. If you look on the internet, there hasn't really been any serious scientific studies yet. There was one case study done that was published in a psychology journal, but this is just an area that's just really, really crying out for research. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. What was the actual question?
How have you changed because of lucid dreaming, and how has your perspective of lucid dreaming changed over the years?
I think the most important thing that I've learned from lucid dreaming is the same thing that I've learned from my psychedelic experiences, which is that, when you're in a lucid dream, you see that the world around you is every bit as real as the waking world is right now. And it really makes you then wonder, if the waking world and the dream world can be, virtually identical in your mind, it really brings to attention, how real is the real world? How real is this world? Because it could easily just be a model in your mind the same way that a dream is, because they have equal footing in your mind once you've experienced both. So the relativity of reality, and whether waking reality is actually some type of waking dream that we're all experiencing in the mind of the divine, or something like that, is an idea that's been floating around in my head ever since I started lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming for me, really, it did a change and develop over the years. When I was doing it, for me at the beginning, all about flying and having wild sex with your ideal lovers, and engaging in all these different fantasies, and flying into outer space and underwater adventures, meeting historical figures, and all that kind of stuff. You really can't do all that in a lucid dream with a tremendous sense of reality, and it really is great fun. But what happened years later that was even more important, and the reason that I wrote the book, is that my experiences with the Amazonian shamanic brew ayahuasca, and that combined with lucid dreaming were instrumental in helping me to overcome a childhood trauma that I'd really been carrying around with me for many years. I was able to face the trauma in my ayahuasca experiences, and then had a series of lucid dreams where I was able to confront someone who had abused me when I was younger, and able to come to reconciliation through the lucid dreaming process. And I'm not the only one who's done this. This is not only a part of shamanic traditions around the world, but a lot of people are starting to use this in their psychotherapy as well. So there is tremendous potential for healing traumas, illness and things like that, both physical and mental. And then even more so really is, the way I think I've developed spiritually as a result. There are characters that you meet in the lucid dreams. That's one of the most interesting things to do, I think, is to converse with the dream characters. And you'll find that they come in three basic types. That there are some characters that seem like they're just kind of mechanical, puppet-like, not too bright, and they don't seem to really have any kind of independent intelligence. But then you'll encounter other characters that really seem to be every bit as intelligent, or seem to have an independent consciousness just like you do. And it really gets kind of uncanny. But even weirder and stranger is that sometimes you encounter these characters in lucid dreams that we call the wise beings, or the guardians. And these are like angelic or divine, or beings of some type, supernatural. In my personal experiences, they've always appeared as young children. But these are beings that seem to know us better than we know ourselves. And they seem to be able to impart knowledge and give us insights and share things with us that many people wake up just shaking their heads and going, "My God, I can't believe that happened." And they give you, they help you with insights into your life that can really help to guide your future evolution and your personal spiritual development. So those are some of the ways that lucid dreaming has helped me and has evolved and changed over the 20 plus years that I've been doing it. I started lucid dreaming when I was around 16, and I'm now 54, so I've been doing it for quite a while.
You've probably talked, I imagine you would have talked with many people who have had lucid dreams. Lucid dreams. Do you notice if there's any, you just mentioned some entities. Are those the common, or certain characters or the commonalities that lucid dreamers have?
That's one of the commonalities that I just described, is that people tend to, the characterizations of those three different types of characters that people tend to meet in lucid dreams is actually very well described in Robert Wagner's book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self. So that's a fairly common way that people encounter these characters, and I think it's just so incredibly intriguing to, on a philosophical level, to ponder whether or not these dream characters really have an independent existence. It's a very similar, philosophical, intriguing problem that's a lot like what people, when people ponder the possible reality of the entities that we meet on DMT trips, or on ayahuasca visions, or on psilocybin voyages. It's very common for people to talk about meeting other entities that seem to be intelligent and converse with them. And we all wonder: are these just projections of our own mind? Are they hallucinations? Are they truly some type of contact or connection with with an intelligent, independently existing entity on some other level of reality that we haven't been able to really measure on some scientifically yet? They're fascinating questions. I don't know that anybody knows the answer to these things, but it's very mysterious, and anyone's welcome to partake in experimenting with this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some of your listeners had a lucid dream tonight just from hearing about this. So yeah, it's fascinating to converse with these characters and to see what they can tell us, especially when they seem to know us better than we know ourselves.
And by now, I'm sure our listeners are salivating at the chances of hearing how to actually do a lucid dream. But we're going to save that just for a moment. I know they're going to probably bite my head off if I keep delaying that for a moment. But I want to keep just building a foundation. Well, let's get into the neuroscience of dreams. What's actually happening in our brains while we're dreaming, physiologically speaking?
Yeah, well, we've actually just figured this out. Well, first of all, one of the reasons I did my book is because there's similarities in terms of the suppression of the left cortex of the brain and the cingulate nucleus being activated that are similar between both just dreaming in general and psychedelic experiences, but like psilocybin experiences or ayahuasca experiences. But what's happening on a neuroscience level in a lucid dream is really most intriguing. During what's called REM sleep, when people are in the rapid eye movement stage of sleep, which is when most people are actively dreaming during this stage. It's an active phase of sleep where your eyes are moving back and forth very rapidly. And when people are awoken during this state, they're almost always able to recount dreams. Normally, during this state, what's happening is an area of the front of the left hemisphere of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. And that area of the brain, when people are dreaming, is usually inactive and silent. And what researchers at the Max Planck Institute in Germany discovered pretty recently was that during lucid dreaming, where people report lucid dreaming, and it could be measured, by the way, I didn't really go into this earlier, but there's ways to actually signal from the lucid dream using eye movements so that researchers can see that the person is definitely carrying out the instructions and is able to make voluntary movements during a dream that correlate in the outside world. But what's most interesting during a lucid dream is that this area of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is normally silent, becomes activated. It becomes very active. And that seems to be the key to what is actually making a normal dream different from a lucid dream. And even more interesting than that is the research that has been done with something called transcranial stimulation. And this is a mild type of stimulation that's applied to the scalp that can specifically simulate certain areas of the brain. And it's been done with the prefrontal cortex during people who were in REM sleep. And around 80% of the time, those people experience lucid dreams. So we now have a technological way to actually lucid dream on command. And there is now a startup company, Kickstarter, doing a program to actually develop these things, and they should be on the market sometime in the next couple of months. So, it's not going to be long before we can all lucid dream on command. It looks like. That'd be wonderful.
What is the future? You're talking about this technology that's coming out, where people will very shortly will be able to induce their own lucid dream. What is the future going to look like with lucid dreaming?
Well, certainly these technologies will get smaller. They'll get cheaper. They'll become more available. They'll become improved, and people will be able to eventually be able to lucid dream on command. With that, then will come other technologies. We're developing the ability right now to record dreams. As crazy as that sounds, we're developing a number of different avenues towards being able to do this. We can actually take certain neurosignals and transform them into visual images. There's ways to record neural activity and translate it into visual imagery. There's ways to record the vocal cords while people are asleep to see what they're actually silently saying in their dreams. And all these things can be put together so that eventually we're probably going to have videos or movies of our dreams in the future and of our lucid dreams. And then there's the whole possibility of what's called shared dreaming. A lot of people report that they can, actually share the context or telepathically communicate or even share, a dream space. And wouldn't it be wonderful with these new technologies, with lucid dream on command technology, and with
how can you not think of the movie Inception when you're talking about these, where people actually can go inside other people's dreams? As outlandish as that sounds, is that a possibility?
Playing on, and there's evidence that it's possible. There really is some interesting evidence, and I talk about in my book the experience that me and my partner had after a year of trying, where we did have what we believe to be a shared lucid dream. So who knows, if these things are really possible or not. But certainly now that we have the technology, coming up on the horizon, we'll be able to seriously explore these things in a scientific way and find out for sure if what people have been claiming for centuries is really true or not.
Well, I'm giving people a warning right now for the future people. Don't come into my dreams. You're unwanted. Well, I guess unless you're Miranda Kerr or some other lovely woman, and I guess that you were touching on that before, how people can, if once they do master lucid dreaming, they can pretty much do anything that they want, have sex with models, walk through different, walk through walls, have superpowers. But that kind of brings on another thing. Wouldn't that be considered? Could that be dangerous? Is that something that you could see your mind falling into? I mean, what are the dangers of lucid dreaming?
There's been a number of criticisms. Critics have actually, suggested that that maybe some people might get addicted to lucid dreaming. They may not become less interested in the waking world if they find that their fantasies are just so exciting and that they can do so much more in a lucid dream than they can in waking reality. Other people have criticized lucid dreaming, saying that it interferes with the natural communication from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind, and that there's a necessary kind of symbolism, and that by lucid dreaming we're interfering with that process. And some people also claim that if you get involved with lucid dreaming, you may be making yourself vulnerable to having bad trips or negative experiences that you can't easily awaken from. And those are the primary criticisms, and really the research that's been done has found them all to be unfounded. There really isn't any evidence to support any of those. First of all, people can't really control a lucid dream that much. You can only influence what happens in a lucid dream, and the unconscious mind is still really the one in control of what's happening. And one could even argue that you get more communication with your unconscious mind in a lucid dream because you're actually consciously interacting and have a better memory of what's going on. So and there's a very, very small number of people that actually have bad or negative experiences. Even though it does happen, there are people who do have frightening experiences in lucid dreams.
What's that like? Have you personally ever had a bad dreaming experience? Lucid dreaming?
Very, very, very rarely. When I started writing the book, a few people contacted me and told me that they had some very frightening experiences in lucid dreams and wanted to awaken, and found that they were stuck. And how do I do this? And so one of the things I actually address in my book are techniques for waking up from a lucid dream. If it does happen to you, if you get stuck in a lucid dream and you need to wake up, one of the quickest ways is to hold your nostrils in the lucid dream, and to hold your breath rather, and to try not breathing. And sometimes that'll jolt your body awake because your breathing in the dream correlates with your actual breathing in your physical body, just like your eye movements do. Every other part of your body is basically paralyzed, and the movements from your dream body don't correlate except for just breathing and eye movements. But for some people, they can have terrifying experiences. I've had some experiences in lucid dreams where I could see how they could have been terrifying. I was able to detach from the experience, so it didn't frighten me. But there were times when I couldn't control it, what was happening to me, and I can see how for someone this could be an extremely frightening experience. So it is rare, but it's also then an opportunity, I think, for some type of psychological reconciliation, for you to actually face your demons or face the things that scare you. Stephen LaBerge, the well-known lucid dream researcher, recommends that when you encounter a frightening figure in a lucid dream, the thing to do is not to run, not to flee, not to fight it, but to embrace it with love, to hug it. And because these, the idea is that these may be just parts of yourself that haven't been integrated, and by hugging and accepting this dream character, at least on a symbolic level, you may be psychologically integrating parts of yourself that have been dissociated or disconnected in some way due to trauma in the past or some type of inner conflict or something along those lines.
Let's stop delaying the inevitable and get into tell people how they can actually do this, some tried and true ways. But let's take a break real quick and keep you waiting and salivating just a little bit more. We'll be right back with author David J. Brown on his book Deaming Wide Awake right after a quick word from our commercial sponsors. We're back with author David J. Brown. This is The Mind's Eye, and we were just where we left off is in your experiences and what you know. What are the most tried and true strategies to actually being able to induce your own lucid dream?
Okay, I'll be happy to share some of these secret techniques with your audience.
Yeah, my audience was going to kill me if we didn't go into it right now. So.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I was going to say my audience was going to kill me if we didn't start talking about it now. So.
Okay, well, let's try to save your life here. So, I think that I'll bet that a good portion of your audience is going to have lucid dreams this evening, just from hearing about it, just from talking about it, just from thinking about it, is one of the things that causes many people to report having lucid dreams. So just the process of thinking about it, reading about it, talking about it, those are the things that tend to make lucid dreams happen more. Most important thing really is to Start focusing on making your dream recollection better. Keep a dream journal. Start writing down your dreams every morning so that you remember them. If you wake up in the morning and you don't remember a dream, write down at least how you feel. If you just remember a fragment of a dream, write down that dream fragment. And you'll be surprised that the more you start writing down dream fragments, the more you start making an effort to try to remember your dreams in the morning or in the middle of the night when you wake up, the more you'll start remembering and the more they'll start coming back. So that's really the first thing, is to start really getting into the habit of keeping a dream journal in order to improve your dream recall. Then start going through the dreams and looking for different things that are called dream signs, which are things that happen repeatedly in dreams that couldn't possibly happen in real life, and start taking note of those things. Another thing, and probably the thing that's helped me the most with lucid dreaming, this is, I think, the very best technique of all, is to get into the habit of asking yourself the all-important question, am I dreaming right now? And to answer that question, you have to be sincere in your answer. You can't just say, well, of course I'm not dreaming right now. So, I mean, if you take the time right this moment, say to yourself, am I dreaming right now? How do you know you're not dreaming? You actually have to test your reality. So there's a couple ways to do it. One of the ways to do it is to look at something written on a piece of paper and memorize the words that are written there. Deaming Wide Awake. Look away and look back. And almost always in a lucid dream, the words will actually change in the interim. So that's a great technique for learning whether or not you're in a lucid dream or not. Another one is to pinch your nostrils closed and try breathing through your nose. In this reality, you'll find that you won't be able to do it. But in a lucid dream, there's a glitch in the dream matrix, and you'll have no problem breathing through your nostrils with them pinched. So those are two simple ways to just test whether or not you're dreaming. And if you get into the habit of doing that, do that once an hour, do that, every half an hour, get into, set some kind of reminder to buzz you, to remind yourself every half an hour to ask yourself that question, and then actually go through the steps of, testing your reality, to test it each time. Around 1/10 of every day, you're dreaming. So if you get into the habit of doing that regularly, you have a 1 in 10 chance of being right. And you are going to find one of these times you're going to be totally surprised if you keep doing that, asking yourself that question and testing the reality. One of these days you're going to go, oh my God, this can't possibly be true. I'm dreaming right now, because you would not have suspected it. It's just going to blow your mind. You're going to totally wake up in the dream, and then you'll have the option to be able to explore and to do different things. But then you see the trickiest thing is to not get so excited in the dream that you fully wake yourself up. That's the most common thing that happens with people when they're first lucid dreaming, is that they get so excited, so happy. Oh my God, this is a dream! I can't believe it! And the next thing they know, they're woken up in their bed because they've got so much adrenaline and excitatory neurotransmitters in the nervous system that they're just heart started going faster. So the first thing to do in a lucid dream is to maintain a state of calmness. Try to keep your emotions as neutral as possible, and then you can start exploring and playing around. But most thing is learn to meditate and learn to stay calm. One more technique I'd like to mention is what they call the wake up and go back to sleep method. And this is a technique that involves waking up around 5 o'clock in the morning, assuming you go to bed around 11 o'clock at night or so, to wake up around 2 hours before you normally would, 2 hours before you normally would, and do something for around a half an hour to wake your mind up. Do some reading, go to the bathroom, walk around a little bit. Don't get yourself too woken up so you can't go back to sleep, but woken up enough where your mind is more active than it was. And after around a half an hour or an hour of being woken up like that, then try going back to sleep. And many people report that if you follow those methods, that you'll have lucid dreams around 50% of the time.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Waking Life, and I think it's been a few years since I've seen it, but if I recall correctly, something while they were to test the reality, they would know they were lucid dreaming if they turned on the light, and then it didn't show up, something to that effect. Have you ever heard something like that?
Wonderful film, Richard Linklater's film. I love that film.
He's the best. He's one of the best.
It's just, yeah, such a classic. And yeah, it's the lucid dreaming is a theme in that film, and that is one of the common it's one of the common phenomena or techniques that people describe, is that turning on a light switch in a lucid dream often fails to actually turn the switch to light on and off, and they do that several times in the film to show that the person is dreaming while it's happening. But yeah, I've actually done that in dreams. I can personally attest to the reality that when you turn a light switch on and off in a dream, it generally does not work. Although there have been a few people I've read on the internet who seem to claim that they've experienced it. So, nothing's true for everyone.
Yeah, and certain commonalities that I'm sure lucid dreamers share, but for the most part, everybody brings something different background-wise to it. Now, you personally, do you have a specific method that you use over and over again, or you'll just do something different in each one?
The most common technique that I use really is what the one I just described, which was getting into the habit of asking myself, "Am I dreaming right now?" And I do that rather frequently when I'm really interested in lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is it's more like practicing for an athletic competition than it is like learning how to ride a bicycle. In other words, you have to kind of keep doing it regularly in order to keep lucid dreaming. If you stop doing these techniques and stop practicing, they'll basically slip away and you'll stop having lucid dreams. So it's something that you have to actively pursue. You have to keep writing in your dream journal. You got to keep asking yourself these questions: Am I dreaming right now? You have to keep, being willing to risk, losing sleep and waking up at 5 in the morning. I mean, there takes an effort to do these things. So, it's not something I just do, throughout my life. There are certain periods in my life when I, actively seek out lucid dreaming and do it. But it's not something that I just do continuously, because it really takes a lot of effort to do it. It's something you need extra time for, and you have to be willing to sacrifice a certain amount of sleep. But besides waking up at 5 in the morning, it really does take effort to keep writing down all your dreams, and that's one of the most important parts of this. And when you wake up at 3 in the morning and you half remember a dream, it takes a lot of effort to turn on the light and write it down. It really does. But that's what really inspires the lucid dreams to keep coming. So I haven't been doing that as much lately, but I'm sure I will again in time.
Yeah, I'm right there in the same boat with you. I actually do keep a dream log myself. I've been doing it for about 2 years or now, and I do find it to be a very, very, very helpful tool for greater self-awareness. I really kind of see what's going on in my brain, and I will definitely say I haven't been writing it in the past few months, and it seems like I can't remember dreams anymore. The more and more I do write, it seems like I can remember more, at least multiple times a week. But what about people who say, I've met people who claim that they can't remember dreams, or even that they don't dream at all. Is that even true? I mean, doesn't everybody dream?
It used to be said in neuroscience and psychology that everyone dreams, and the evidence for this was that almost everybody who you take into a sleep lab and you wake them up when they're in, if you measure their brain waves and their eye movements, that you'll see that if you wake them up when they're in that REM stage of sleep, the rapid eye movement stage of sleep I described earlier, that people will almost always, all the people who say they never dream, will almost always say that they recall dreams when that's actually done. As far as I know, there's been 1 or 2 cases of people documented where they really don't seem to dream. It seems extremely rare, and seems to be due to certain types of stroke. There was one particular case I have documented in my book where they really tested her, and it really seemed like she didn't dream. But that's extremely, extremely rare, because, like I said, all the people who claim they don't dream when they've actually been tested usually do show that they're dreaming when they're in REM sleep. There is a certain this disorder, I forget what it's called. Pygeria, something like that involves a vitamin B12 deficiency, I think. And when you're deficient in this vitamin, people usually have difficulty recalling their dreams. And that's why if it's either vitamin B12 or vitamin B7, I can't remember. It's in my book for those who are interested. But when you increase the amount of that vitamin, many people report that their dream recall goes up. There's also certain herbs, Kalia, Zacateki, what's called the Mexican dream herb, that helps people to recall dreams. But really, it's really, the most important thing is really just to try your best to try to write things down in the morning when you wake up. And if you don't recall anything, then just write down how you feel at least. Just write down the emotional quality, from the dream or something, any little thing. And I think that the more attention you pay to it, just minuscule amounts of attention start to snowball and start to build. And people will often be surprised that even if they think they don't remember anything, if they really give it some attention, that the dreams will start to come back. And the more attention you give it, the more they'll start to come back more and more.
Since there are those scientific cases where people cannot physically dream, does that indicate possibly that dreaming is a physiologically based, or like there has to be a certain chemical or something going on in the brain to dream, and once that's cut off, then you can't dream? What does that indicate really about actual dreaming itself?
It does seem to indicate that, and it also makes us wonder then, is dreaming really necessary? That's been one of the biggest questions in the biology of sleep is, what is the function of dreaming? Why do we dream? And they've actually done scientific studies where what they do is they try to allow people to sleep, and they wake them up during REM sleep to try to prevent dreaming. And what happens is that the more they do this, over several nights, the more the brain will keep trying to go into REM sleep. And after a week, the brain just will do nothing but REM sleep, so it's almost impossible to keep waking the person up because the brain will just keep trying to do that. We still really don't know what is going on or why it's necessary. It seems to have something to do with memory consolidation. One of the primary theories is that what's going on at the end of the day when we're dreaming is memories are being sifted through, and important ones are being incorporated into the long-term memory, and ones that are judged to be insignificant or are discarded. That's one of the theories. So you really don't know exactly why we dream, but that's one of the. To get some kind of insight into what happens to those people that don't dream. That woman I described, as far as I know, she didn't have any real psychological problems that were described in that one paper that I read. But people who have their dreaming suppressed, or at least have that REM stage of sleep suppressed, do start to become anxious and agitated and develop certain emotional or psychological problems. So it seems to be serving some type of function. There's so many different theories as to what the function of dreams is that it seems like they probably have no one function, but probably multiple functions. Helping the conscious mind to understand unconscious material, as well as the memory consolidation process that I described earlier, and maybe other things as well.
We've been talking a lot about what present day, the minimal amount of studies that there are on it, what they do say, and obviously what your personal experiences are. But lucid dreaming and dreaming date back thousands of years. What do our ancestors have to say about lucid dreaming?
Well, it's a good question. The very first real scientific study was done not really scientific study, but the first attempt to systematically record lucid dreams was done in the 1850s by someone in France who wrote a book about it that's available today. I have the title of the book is in my book. I can't recall it right now, but it was written in French, and there is an English translation of it available. But that was the first systematic attempt, was in the 1850s, and that was when the term lucid dream really was invented or coined, but in French. And then in 1913 was the first scientific paper written about lucid dreaming. It's been mentioned in Hindu literature going back thousands of years. And it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's been a part of Tibetan Buddhism also for thousands of years. They've incorporated into their spiritual practice as part of their meditation for preparation for entry into the bardos, which is their word for the afterlife, or what happens after we die. The Tibetan Buddhists believe that dreams are basically practice for the after-death realm, and that if we learn to become lucid in our dreams and learn to navigate what happens while we're dreaming, that we'll be able to then do this much more effectively after we die, and then be able to incarnate more consciously. that's one of the ideas that's been incorporated into Tibetan Buddhism. First, like I said, the first scientific mention of it really was in 1913, and then there was a book by Celia Green in the 1960s called Lucid Dreaming, and that was a book that predicted that lucid dreaming. First of all, it suggested that lucid dreaming was real. There were all these books earlier that placed lucid dreaming in sort of the category of the occult. It wasn't really considered scientific. There was a great book by Oliver Fox in the 1920s called Out-of-Body Experiences, I think, and it's what is it? Something with had the word astral, something about astral traveling is in it, the title. But it's really a book about lucid dreaming more than it is about traveling out of the body. And it's a really wonderful, systematic, study and diary of his experiences. But this was never really taken seriously by the scientific community until Cecilia Green's book in the 1960s. And then during the 1970s were the first actual scientific experiments. Keith Hearn in England and Stephen LaBerge in California independently did studies where they were able to show that people, while they were in the REM state of sleep, were able to make controlled voluntary eye movements, one to the right, one to the left, one to the right, two to the left, like a kind of Morse code from the dream state. And this was conclusive evidence that people were able to consciously communicate and make deliberate movements while they were asleep and dreaming. And something that had been claimed for years by mystics and occultists and by Buddhists and yogis was finally confirmed scientifically, and that was really the beginning. And then ever since then, it's been it's been entry into mainstream culture. There's now been numerous Hollywood movies, and it's been incorporated into TV shows, and now we're just right around the corner from having own personal machines that can transcranial stimulate the brain and produce lucid dreaming on command, and it might soon be part of everyone's home and be as common as an iPod.
We come back from we're going to go specifically into an author David J. Brown experience with lucid dreaming and some interesting experiences that he's had. We'll be right back on The Mind's Eye. We're back on The Mind's Eye with author David J. Brown. We're discussing his book, Deaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. Before we get into that part of it, just share your website so people can more information about the book and get their hands on it.
Oh, well, people, my personal website is www.mavericksofthemind.com. To find out more about the work I do, probably the best way is really to stay in touch with me through my Facebook page. Anyone can find it, David J. Brown. To get my book, it's available by Inner Traditions. It's on the Inner Traditions website, Deaming Wide Awake, and it's also available on Amazon and any fine bookstore by you.
Great. And I highly recommend it. I got a copy of it. I finished it last night, and it's a wonderful read, combining both personal experiences and the scientific part of it. And really is no holds bar. You go into a lot of different topics, even including erotic lucid dreaming. So God bless you. And it is a fun read on top of being informative. But let's talk more about that last part of the title, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. Go into more about this part of the book.
Okay, well, that was really my motivation for doing this book. I do think it probably is one of the most comprehensive books on lucid dreaming, but it's really the first book to really explore the connection between lucid dreaming and psychedelic shamanism or psychedelic experiences, which hasn't really been explored before. It's almost been shied away from, I think. But there's, in shamanic traditions around the world, in South America and Peru, along the Amazon, where they do ayahuasca ceremonies. Part of the shamanic tradition is to incorporate lucid dreaming techniques, and as part of the healing process. And many people consider the what happens in the lucid dreaming as to be a continuation of the healing ceremonies. And I personally had my very first lucid dream just a couple of days after having an LSD experience when I was a teenager. And over the years, I noticed that people would report having lucid dreams commonly a day or two after having a psychedelic experience. And I thought this was very interesting and hadn't really been hadn't really been remarked on enough in the books and stuff that I've been reading about lucid dreaming. I wrote Stanley Krippner about this, who's a dream researcher, and I asked him, what he thought some of the similarities were between psychedelic experiences and lucid dreaming, and he wrote me back, surprisingly saying he didn't think that there were really that many. He thought that there was, more differences than there were similarities, and I was kind of like dumbfounded because, in my mind, it just seemed like there was just so many of these different things. So I actually put together a list of them, and started thinking about this quite a bit. But some of the things that I came up with was besides the fact that people report having lucid dreams very commonly after ayahuasca or LSD or mushroom experiences. The same brain regions are activated in both states, as I discussed earlier. Both can be used shamanically. They're both used for healing, for creativity, for improving performance, for developing personal insights. One of the things that's extremely interesting is that people can actually do a dream psychedelic. In other words, when you're in a lucid dream, you can take ayahuasca or you can smoke DMT, and you can have a full-blown psychedelic experience in the dream state without actually taking the drug. So that implies that these are states of consciousness that the brain is capable of and doesn't need any kind of external chemical stimulation to be able to do. It's been speculated that one of the things that's involved in dreaming is a substance called DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is naturally found in the brain. It's also a very powerful psychedelic. When people take it, it's part of the ayahuasca brew. Both states of consciousness, lucid dreaming and psychedelic states, have been reported to increase the frequency of psychic phenomena. Isn't it interesting that people refer to psychedelic experiences and lucid dream experiences as waking up, as an awakening experience? The terminology is really similar. A lot of people experience synchronicity and synesthesia, the blurring of the senses. In both states, they experience a heightened sense of sensitivity. So you can see they can lead to mystical experiences. There's just, they can lead to philosophical questions about are these characters that we're encountering in the hyperspace or in the lucid dream, do they have a real independent existence? There are just so many, I think, interesting similarities that really hadn't been explored, and that was the primary motivation for me doing this book. So that's the substance of the book, and that's what I explore in great depth. There are a lot of those things that I just mentioned, and others as well, because I think that this was a largely unexplored area. And
would you mind sharing an experience of you seeking out a shaman and then maybe taking ayahuasca, if this?
Well, I personally had ayahuasca experiences when I was down in the Peruvian Amazon. I did them very non-traditionally. I didn't do it with a shaman. I did it alone with my girlfriend in someone's house, and it was one of the most profoundly healing experiences of my life. And I did it a number of times that way when I was down there. And my experience was one that I felt that there is a spirit or a voice or an intelligence that comes through, the plant. It's like the plant spirit comes down and scans your body and finds traumas, finds injuries, finds things, and does some kind of psychic surgery on you. And as crazy as this sounds, almost everybody who has had experience with reports the same thing, and you feel that they can not only find these injuries but heal them. And I had a very serious trauma that was healed for me during this experience, and I didn't totally believe it, to be honest. The next day I was like, kept as kind of a personal secret to myself to see if the symptoms were really gone. And I waited 6 weeks before mentioning this to anybody, and it's now been over 2 years. And I had a post-traumatic stress disorder experience when I was a child that was completely cured as a result of my experiences with ayahuasca, and it's now been 2 years, and I haven't had any symptoms since. So so personally, I know the power of ayahuasca and lucid dreaming to be able to heal childhood traumas.
And I don't want to make it, for those who are listening, I don't want to make it seem like this is a conversation about drugs or, this is definitely not even going to be a debate about drug use in the society. We're just really talking about lucid dreaming, the benefits and the use of these type of enhancers for health benefits and maybe a way of deepening your self-awareness. You seem to, in that sense...
Let me also say that one of the points I make in my book is that anything possible through psychedelic shamanism is possible through lucid dreaming. I'm totally convinced of that. Lucid dreaming is powerful enough that you can experience any of these states in the lucid dream without any substance or anything. Lucid dreaming is that powerful.
I've never actually personally had one, but I've been sleeping with your book underneath underneath my pillow in hopes of osmosis occurs, and maybe lucid dreaming will happen one of these days. But after finishing it last night, I'm obviously going to take those strategies that we talked about earlier and apply them, and hopefully not have to sleep with a lump of paper below my head at nighttime. And I also, just to add to all of that, I don't want to make it seem like either of us are pro drugs, because I'm sure both of us have had experiences, both good people within ourselves and maybe even with other people about it, but we're just using this as a tool to talk about the health benefits of lucid dreaming. Just wanted to note that in itself. And in the book, you do note there's a little interesting tidbit that according to Johns Hopkins psychologist, taking a psychedelic is like I believe it was she compares it to death practice. Extrapolate upon that idea a little bit further, David. What do you think your experiences with lucid dreaming and taking a psychedelic combined teaches you about death?
Oh, that's such a fascinating question. Well, there's a lot of people who equate all those experiences. I mean, in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a wonderful book called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is about preparation for dying. And people have Timothy Leary and Ram Dass and other people from the Harvard Psychedelic Project years ago took the Tibetan Book of the Dead and began using it as a psychedelic guidebook, because the process of having a psychedelic experience usually involves at least a kind of ego death, where your small sense of self tends to dissolve and you tend to unify with something larger, your higher self or God or the divine or the source or whatever you want to call these things. These kind of experiences, though, these kind of mystical experiences where you can merge with something greater than yourself is also possible in a lucid dream, and just as possible, and people have experienced these things just through lucid dreaming. So I don't think that one needs to take any type of psychedelic to actually experience them, but that is what's possible with them. And many people have claimed to have mystical or spiritual awakening experiences with them. The Johns Hopkins study that you just mentioned showed that something like 80% of subjects who took psilocybin, the active ingredient, and the magic mushroom, under the proper setting, the proper guidance, and proper circumstances, I think around 75 or 80% of them had profound, life-changing, mystical experiences that they were found indistinguishable from mystical experiences that religious prophets have claimed all throughout history. So there really seems to be something to it.
And maybe I'll give you a little insight into myself. And to be honest, as a young boy, or not too young, but of age, of course, I might have practiced death a couple times, if you know what I mean. And for the most part, I will say that these experiences were mainly laughing. But the first time I ever practiced death, so to speak, it maybe kind of felt like it's something that I've been grappling with since. That did I feel like that? Like the one feeling that I took away from that experience is remembering how I felt. We were at a friend's house, and it felt like there was nothing else around us, and also like all there was that moment and in time, and it felt completely, perfectly blissful and fine. And I think that's an idea that I've been grappling. Is that maybe what death feels like?
Well, maybe. I mean, it's a great mystery. Nobody knows, but we do know from scientific studies that Stanislav Grof did in the early 70s, studies that showed that when people do LSD in the proper circumstances, and I think Charles Grobe is doing studies now with psilocybin, and there's a study going on in Switzerland with LSD with people with end-of-life anxiety, and showing that people who are confronting death due to a terminal illness when they've had LSD experiences are much less afraid of the dying process and are much more embracing of the process. It's like I said earlier, the Tibetan Buddhists believe that dreaming and mystical experiences are practice for what happens to us, after we die. Something I want to share. I'm very, very curious about what happens to consciousness after death. It's something I've done 5 interview collections. That's one of the questions I've asked almost everybody that I've interviewed, and I've gotten a wide range of really fascinating questions. I think about it every day. It's not because I'm obsessed with dying, but because I just think it's philosophically so interesting. So, years ago when I was having a lot of lucid dreams, one of the things that I wanted to try doing in a lucid dream was to see what happens after death. So I thought, I could try killing myself in a lucid dream and see what happens. So one day I did this.
What happened? Jeez. I mean, you're laughing about it now, but maybe it's not something to laugh about. What happened?
So this is what happened. One day in a lucid dream, I had this. This was an idea I had planned to do previously, and said next time in a lucid dream, I really want to, work up the courage to do this. And found myself in some kind of large warehouse. I can't remember what it was, the context of the original dream, but I became lucid, and was like, okay, time to carry out that plan. And I do the reality testing that I normally do, which was, I jumped up in the air several times to make sure I was able to hover in the air and float, just to absolutely make sure that this really was a dream. And then conveniently found a handgun in my pocket or hand, I can't recall, and bravely, and it did take bravery, let me tell you, it took courage to do it, to held it up to the side of my head and pull the trigger. And the moment I pulled the trigger, silent darkness. That's all it was. Nothing. No tunnel, no light, no none of the stuff that I was kind of expecting. It was just silent darkness for, 5-10 seconds or something, and then I think I awoke later. But nothing happened at all. And I thought about that. For years I've thought about that. And I wondered if maybe that wasn't, I've read a lot of people's accounts of near-death experiences, and I've wondered if maybe that wasn't so much my mind's conception of what happens after physical death, but so much of what happens if one commits suicide, because that actually is a commonly reported near-death experience when people try to kill themselves with suicide and don't succeed. Is they it's one of the few times people have negative near-death experiences. They don't go into the light. They don't encounter their departed loved ones. They don't experience the bliss and ecstasy of going into the light. None of that stuff. They just experience sometimes violence, darkness, or demons or things like that. And so I've wondered about that experience for years, and if my one attempted experiment in a lucid dream to see what happens after you die was really some type of insight into what happens after one attempts suicide. But who knows?
For lack of better phrasing, putting a gun to your head right now, what would it be if you had to answer? Was that what was death like, or is that what death is like after you commit suicide? And why would that even matter?
If I had to, like I said, I don't know what I believe, but I would definitely choose that. That's probably indicative of what happens with suicide. And I do have I don't have any firm dogmatic beliefs about what happens after you die, but I suspect that consciousness continues in some form, and that there is some type of influence by what we believe happens. I think very much like what you believe happens in life influences your life. I think what you believe about what happens after death probably influences the after-death process, because a lot of people who have had near-death experiences report experiences that are consistent with their religious beliefs. So it seems like your sense of belief may play a role in what you experience after you die.
Before we were talking about your experiences with dreams, lucid dreaming, the characters that you meet while it's happening. Now, in his earlier, we actually did a huge show with a Jungian a big Jungian about this, but we didn't go too much into the dreaming aspect of what Jung said. But if I'm reading correctly, it seemed like he used to go back and forth on this notion if people and characters that we do see in dreams are just reflections of our inner thoughts and feelings, or is there something more that's going on there? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, that's such an incredibly intriguing philosophical question that I have pondered. I mean, I am trying to figure out if there's some way to trick a dream character into revealing something. Like, if they could reveal some type of information that I didn't know, would that be some kind of evidence that they have an independent existence or not? I mean, I don't know. I suspect, my suspicion is that there are dream characters that do have independent conscious minds inside of their brains. I suspect that the whole universe is a giant conscious mind, what we call God, or the universal mind, and that all of us are just really characters, like dream characters in that mind, and that it has like kind of it's like a fractal, and that in our minds there are dream characters the same way, and that they have their own independent existence, and inside of them it probably keeps going on, like a nesting of Russian dolls, with just dreams within dreams within dreams, and worlds within worlds within worlds. It may just keep going on forever like that. I that's what I suspect, as crazy as it sounds. I really don't know.
But one thing you talk about...
I may change my mind tomorrow.
Okay, and I think you reserve the right to do that, and no one's going to blame you here if either. I can actually appreciate someone who's willing to change their minds after lots of thought and open to hearing maybe other opinions or perspectives. So I won't blame you for that. In fact, I respect you more for it. With the experiences that you've had, you've talked about how you've encountered these beings. We don't know if you believe that, hey, maybe they're possibly real, maybe they're independent, who knows, but you talk about how they've revealed information to you. Talk about that. What are some of the information that they've talked to you about?
Well, it's personal information. It's really kind of hard to share publicly, and that would be even difficult for people to understand why it was so important. But the encounters that I've had, people talk about encounters with wise beings, like angelic beings, beings of light. In my personal experience, there was nothing like that. What I've always encountered, the wise beings that I encountered, were always little children, like 5 or 6 year old children, both boys and girls. And one of the wise beings I encountered was just a little girl who, during a period of my life when I was having a difficult time, in the dream, she touched her forehead to my forehead, and in that process, I felt like there was just this. She understood me. She loved me. She was showing me like things about my life and where it was going, and it's so hard to describe, but it was just a very, very profound, almost like mystical experience. And more recently, I had a lucid dream, and I remember one of the characters in the dream was a young child, and I said to the child, we're dreaming right now. And as I said that, he said it simultaneously. We said it like together. We're dreaming right now. We both said it at the exact same time. And I was like so surprised, because most of the time when I say to a dream character, we're dreaming right now, they usually disagree with me. No, we're not. No, we're not dreaming. What are you talking about? This isn't a dream, Or we try to fly, they try to like pull you down. And this little boy in the dream says, I said, how did you know that? And he goes, because I'm a part of you. And then it was like, and then right after he said that, he said a whole bunch of things that seemed like he was saying like sentences that had multiple meanings. Like each sentence could be interpreted in several ways. Like there was different ways of interpreting it. And they were like puns, like in the sentence. And I wrote down as much as I could when I woke up, but it seemed like he was just, each time these things happen to me, they're almost a little overwhelming, and I can't, really bring back all of the information. But there's often this very profound sense that something, is being revealed to me, and oftentimes there has been information, personal information that has been very relevant and really uncanny.
So to me, it possibly sounds like you believe that this is more of a reflection of our inner selves than actual independent characters.
Well, in that particular case, like I said, I go back and forth, and I change my mind. That was in this case, that was what the character said to me. It's when I said before that I think that we're also characters, in the mind of God, and these characters are inside of us. I mean, what is inside? What is outside? Where do we end? Where does other beings begin? begin. The boundaries between us and other beings, I think are kind of artificial. I think it's really true that everything really is one system, the entire universe, the entire multiverse. Everything is interconnected. All consciousness, all minds are ultimately connected to one source, to one beginning. So it would make sense then that, that if we had dreams within dreams, characters within characters, if we were independently conscious within a greater mind that's also independently conscious. As crazy as all this sounds, that's really the best model I can come up with, for what's been happening to me and other people. And I think it's probably a little, a little naive to make these really firm distinctions of inner and outer. And I think that's why we get into trouble, is thinking that, the inside and the outside, to think that we're really separate people. I think that ultimately everyone's really the same person in the mind of God or in the mind of the universal mind, and that everyone inside of us is really connected and they're really all us. But it doesn't mean that they aren't able to somehow have the illusion of independent existence somehow. And how that illusion is achieved is the great magic and mystery of the universe.
Absolutely beautiful. I think that's a beautiful place to leave it off. Give out your website one last time before I kick you off the show. All right, David?
Yeah, so my website is www.mavericksofthemind.com. The best way to stay in touch with me really is through my Facebook. I have a public Facebook page and a private. Anyone's welcome to friend me on my private Facebook page and stay in touch with the work that I do. And my books are available from Inner Traditions. Deaming Wide Awake was just published. My last one was The New Science of Psychedelics and Frontiers of Psychedelic Consciousness, also available from Inner Traditions. And I always enjoy getting messages and letters from people. If anyone's had any lucid dreams or anything, I would love hearing from you, and may use your anecdotes or story in a future book. So thank everyone in advance for listening, and thank all your listeners for participating. I really appreciate it.
I'd say sleep well tonight, but I don't think that's going to be an issue for you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I'll sleep well, and I wish everybody here pleasant lucid dreams. I think you might have your first lucid dream tonight, Brian. Let me know if you do.
I sure hope so, and you'll be the first person I email. You know it will be. I appreciate your time, David J. Brown, my friend, and I hope you have a great night tonight.
It's been a great pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
Until the next one.
On the next episode of The Mind's Eye, our dreams turn to nightmares as we celebrate one of our favorite holidays. It is our Halloween special 2016. October 27th, our guests, Richard Estep, firefighter, paramedic, and paranormal investigator. We're going to discuss his book, The Haunting of Asylum 49, Chilling Tales of Aggressive Spirits, Phantom Doctors, and the Secret of Room 6.